Hello and welcome to the Naima JPS Maths video Year 4 Angles 1. And today we're going to think about different types of angles and how to measure angles. As you can see, I've drawn two black lines on the screen. First of all, I would like us to think about what an angle is. So an angle is where you measure the distance of a turn. Now the turn has to be measured from the point where the two lines join. So if we have a look at this line here, at the moment the angle is fairly small, but if I move the line and increase or decrease the distance between the two lines, the angle will get smaller or it can get bigger, okay, until it could get really huge. You could even, this angle here is obviously very large, but you could measure the smaller angle here as well. Now let's have a quick think about what the different names of the different types of angles are. So as we learnt in class, often we think of things that are quite small as being cute, and so if something is smaller than a right angle is like this, where there is 90 degrees. It looks like this, the corner of a square. If it's smaller than 90 degrees, smaller than a right angle, it's called an acute angle. If it's between 90 degrees, so between a right angle and a straight line is 180 degrees. So if it's between 90 and 180, it is called an obtuse angle. So this is an obtuse. And anything that is beyond a straight line, so anything bigger than a straight line, anything from 180 all the way around to a full circle is 360 degrees. Anything round to a full circle is called a reflex angle. Okay, let's move on. So let's have a look at a protractor. Now, it's really important that we know what a protractor is and what it is used for. So the protractor is used to measure angles. Now if I make it slightly bigger, we can have a close look at it. So as you can see, if we look at this side, from the outside the numbers go starting from 0 all the way around, going all the way up to 180. Of course 180 being a straight line. But if we start from this side, on the inside it also starts from 0 going all the way around to 180, a straight line. In the middle there is 90 degrees, whichever scale you're following, the top or the bottom. So this is a right angle whatever. Okay, so if we look along this line and going up, it makes like a corner of a square in here, so it's a right angle. So this helps us to see that if you put two right angles together, it will make a straight line. Two right angles makes 180 degrees. Now the really important part of the protractor is this part where the two lines cross, and we're going to look at that in a second when we start measuring angles. So this is the most important part. Okay, let's move on to measuring the angles then. So let's have a really good think about how to measure an angle, because if you are not using your protractor correctly, it won't work. So first of all, you need to know exactly where you're going to put your protractor. So as we talked about before, this part here where the two lines join, that is the part that has to go on the corner of the angle. And if that doesn't happen, then you won't be able to measure it accurately. So let me put that on the corner of the angle. Now the next important thing is that you need to make sure that this line down here, where 180 and 0 is lined up perfectly along the line of your angle. So I'm going to move it because it's not at the moment, so that it is lined up perfectly along the angle. And now everything is lined up correctly, and so I can follow this line up and I can see and I can read what the angle is. Now there's two different ways that you can think of to know which number to look at. First of all, maybe the easiest way, is to look down here where the angle begins and count from 0. So start from 0 and look up those numbers. So keep going round and round and round and we get to 50. You could also just look at these two numbers and think, oh, well, which one is it most likely to be? So obviously this is smaller than a right angle, it's an acute angle. So we know there has to be 50. It can't be 130 because 130 is bigger than a right angle. So this angle is 50 degrees. That's how big it is. Okay, so you're going to do some measuring. Let's go on to the next page. Here are some different angles. Now I'm going to line up the protractor for you, and then you're going to read how big the angle is. Okay, so remember, it's really important that we line it up where this part here, where the two lines cross, is lined up against the angle. Now, first of all, I'd like us to think of what the different types of angles are. So, this one over here, try saying out loud for me what type of angle you think this is. Hopefully you have just said that you think it is an acute angle. Remember, an acute angle is an angle that is less than 90 degrees, smaller than a right angle. So, now let's have a think about maybe estimating how big the angle is. So if we have a look, a right angle would be coming up straight up here. Okay, so that would be a right angle where it would be 90 degrees. Now this is probably half, if not slightly less than half of that. So half of 90 is 45, maybe a little bit less than that, so maybe 40, 35, 30, around that. Okay, so it's really important that you estimate, because if you had said to me, oh, I think it's 120 degrees, then clearly that's not going to be right. You need to know roughly what it's going to be first. So let me put the protractor in place. I'm going to line up the protractor and make sure that it's, there we go, that's exactly on. Now this time you're obviously not going to read from this side because that's not where the angle is. The angle is over here, so you're going to have to read from this side starting on the 0. So start from the 0 and tell me what you think the angle is. Okay, hopefully you've just told me that it's 30 degrees. Okay, remember it can't be 150 degrees because it's less than a right angle. So this angle is 30 degrees, that's how big it is. So our estimate was spot on. Okay, let's look at the next angle. Let's look at this one up here. Now this one, do you think this one is going to be closer to a right angle, or do you think it's even smaller than this angle over here? Hopefully you've told me it's going to be closer to a right angle. Okay, so let's have, first of all, what type of angle is it? Hopefully you've told me that it's an acute angle again. It's still smaller than a right angle, but it's quite close to a right angle. So what do you think could be a good estimate for this angle? Okay, hopefully you've told me, well, somewhere, if 90 degrees is a right angle, which is going straight up, okay, I would say maybe 80 or 70 is going to be a good guess. Okay, so let's have a look. Let's put this in place, the protractor. Now, I'm going to have to make the protractor a bit smaller so that we can see the numbers still. Let's line up the two lines so that they are exactly in place. Make sure that protractor is in place. Remember, it has to go along that line, and then hopefully you can read up and tell me what the angle is. So what is the angle? Okay, hopefully you have told me that it is 70 degrees. Now remember, two ways to do it. You could have started on 0 and counted up to 70, or looked at the two numbers and thought, can't be 110 because it's smaller than, and right angle smaller than 90 degrees. So this one has to be 70 degrees. Right, the last angle. This one is definitely not an acute angle. So have a look and tell me, if we're going to measure this angle here, what type of angle is this? Okay, hopefully you've told me that this is an obtuse angle. Okay, it is bigger than a right angle, but it's not gone down to a straight line. It's not a straight line. Okay, so it's between 90 and 180. So next, can you have a guess of what you think, how big this angle is? Have a guess. Okay, now let's have a look. If we go up here, now this line down here isn't straight, remember, so if we were to make a right angle it would probably come up there, And so I would say a good guess is going to be around 150 or 160. Okay, so let's have a look and see. Let's put the protractor in place. Remember, you need to line up the point. The corner needs to go right in the middle of those two lines. Now I can't just leave the protractor like that, because this line that's going down must line up against this line here. So I have to turn the protractor. There we go. Okay, so the protractor doesn't always go straight. Now, if we have a look, have a look at where the line is coming out, okay, and tell me, see if you can measure how big the angle is and tell me. Okay, so if we read what the angle is, now this time we don't follow up from 0 this side, okay, we have to follow from 0 this side because this is where it starts. So if we follow it all the way around, and we can see that it's in between 130 and 140, okay, so it would be 135. Okay, it can't be the numbers on the bottom because it's bigger than a right angle. It has to be the bigger numbers, so 135 degrees. Now, my estimate was a little bit off, but hopefully your estimate was a lot closer. Okay, right. Hopefully you have thought really carefully about how to measure angles and you have learnt a lot from this video. Next, I would like you to go and get the worksheet that I gave you and to practice on your own, first of all estimating angles and then measuring angles. Think carefully and remember how to use the protractor correctly. You have to start, remember you need to put where the two lines join, you need to put it on the corner of the angle. You need to make sure that this line at the bottom lined up correctly along the line of your angle, and then you must make sure you start reading from 0, okay, wherever the angle begins, because otherwise it won't work. Okay, good luck, and I look forward to seeing how you get on.